All right.
Okay.
Welcome to Paragliding Banter, Theo. It's a pleasure to have you. You have captivated the world of paragliding with your skills and your innovative moves. You're also a five-time World Cup champion, the entrepreneur, professional paragliding pilot, and also content creator. So it is very exciting to have you on the podcast, and I'm very excited to chat with you, delve into your experiences, and you're already a legend and popular all over the world. So introduction is the least that I can do. Everyone knows you. So welcome, Theo.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't do a lot of podcasting, but I know that India is a big part of my fan base, and so I'm really happy to do one in India because I know I have a lot of Indian pilots that know me. So it's really cool for me to maybe talk to that community a little bit, which I never really see because we live in different part of the world, kind of.
Yeah, you're definitely popular in India. Cool. So we have a limited time, and I really want to cover a lot with you today. So I'm going to just jump into the main parts. There is a lot of information about you in on the net already, and we all know that you started flying at a very early age because you were influenced by your father, who was also a paragliding instructor.
Yeah.
And I want to pick up, at a point in time where you reached Organia when you were aged 14 years.
Yeah.
At 14 years, I was at school, not knowing but you reached Organia at 14 years, and you met Horacio and Raul.
Yeah.
And
So the story is that in France we have 2 months of school holidays in summer, which is a perfect time to go to fly to Organia. So I managed to I was working in the weekends in a paragliding school. I was doing repairs and I was doing SIV filmings and stuff like this to gather money. And so I managed to get enough money to go to Organia. My parents allowed me to go on they had two conditions. The first condition was that I paid for the trip myself without the help, and that I would write them at least one text per day to tell them that I was safe because there was no roaming at the time. So yeah, I had one text per day. So basically, I arrived there alone with one friend of mine, but I was mostly alone. I had like €5, between €3 and €5 per day to live in Organia, which is not a lot. And I met there Horacio and Raul. My goal was I didn't have a specific goal when I arrived there. I just wanted to fly, train, and get better in acro, but I didn't have any specific goals of tricks or anything. I wanted to discover the place.
awesome. But when you went there, you were welcomed very much by Horacio and Raul, and they showed you everything that they did. But when you went there, how much of Acro did you actually know, and what did you learn from there?
So when I arrived in Albania, I was able to do some helicos. I was beginning the helico connections. I was within more or less that level of acro flying where you start to have like all of your helicos working, but not all of them, and all of my connections were working. But I was not very good. I was just learning. And I met mostly Horacio. Raul was briefly there, but not really. But I met mostly Horacio, which at the time was really the best pilot in the world. And he was also my idol since I was a kid. I've always, as a pilot, found Horacio the best pilot in the world. And when I was a kid, he was the one I was looking forward to meet and forward to be alike, because he was and he still is for me the the best image you can have of an acro pilot. So basically, I was mostly with Horacio, and Horacio really he helped me a lot because just watching him fly was helping me understand what a professional pilot should do, what a professional pilot should train, and I learned a lot just from that. But also, he was really kind enough to give me a lot of advices when I learned infinity tumbling that year. So I was quite young, but Horacio really took care of trying to give me the proper advices, the proper tools, and he was really like kind without pushing me at all, just trying to give me the advices I needed. And he was really nice to like cheer me up when it was not working, or he was really like we became really good friends at that time, actually.
Right. So once you learned a bit over there, you started competing, and you started going to the championships, and but you decided that maybe you need to have something different so that you can show that in the competitions, and that's when you invented the twisted arms.
So yeah, what you have to understand is that each acro pilot has kind of a style. So we all have like our own style. Some are like really aggressive, some are really quick and have really fast connections. But my style has always been to be really clean. I what you could consider like a nerd of acro, which means that I watch a lot of videos, I train a lot, I think about it a lot. So in my DNA, I'm like I was a really good student, you know. So in my DNA, I'm more like a student than an athlete. So I was always kind of a nerd, and my style is being clean. My style is doing the tricks exactly as they should be done. And the problem is that this style is usually not rewarding so much in competitions because it's not the most impressive. So you have to be different to the others because as soon as someone is doing something aggressive, it will always pay more than someone who is really clean. And when you are really clean, if you do one small mistake, you are getting destroyed. So I had to find something different, which ended up being twisted tricks and later on really small gliders because this helped me like bridge the gap between clean and aggressivity. But yeah, basically, I always had to find something which made me stand apart a little bit to the other ones in order to not get penalized by my style in competition, which is being really clean.
So there is a follow-up question on the twisted bit, which I'll come to in a moment. But before that, there are also these four tricks that we spoke about that Paul Takas had implemented, and
Yeah,
that's I think the Espera, Bomb, Joker, and Cowboy.
yeah.
And somewhere you mentioned that these are the basis of all the maneuvers, and it's not fun doing them. Would it be possible for you to explain very quickly, briefly, what do these actually mean? What is Espera? What is Joker?
The Esfera was the main trick that Pal invented. Basically, the Esfera was climbing in a rhythmic sat. So in a sat, you climb to the infinity tumbling, and you let it slide down towards another sat to the other side. It was one of the most important trick because at the time we thought it was impossible, first of all, but also because it brought a lot of safety to the sport until Paul invented the Esfera. When you were learning infinity tumbling, you had to stop it with a stall. So you had to be good enough to stall it at the right moment. If you were making a mistake, you were risking falling into your canopy in that exercise. If you were making a mistake in the pool or anything, you had to stop it straight away. And the Esfera brought like a really new sense of safety because suddenly you could just go hands up if you were a bit lost. And then you were just going hands up and the glider was going down by itself. So this was the most important for the sport in itself, because yeah, from that day onwards, everyone learned infinite with that trick, and still as of today, everyone is learning infinity tumbling through that trick. But the other three, so the cork, the joker, and the cowboy, they were the technical ones. They were the one for competitions. So the joker and the cowboy are, let's say, similar. So the joker is a tumbling entry that you stop, and then when the glider is in front of you, you connect it to a really quick sat to heli movement, while the cowboy is that you let shoot sideways and you connect into a sat to heli movement. So those two tricks are a bit similar in their, let's say, DNA. And the cork is more like a really, really high, almost vertical misty flip that you connect into heli. So basically, those three tricks today, they are the, let's say, the backbone of what acro flying is. We use them twisted, we use them with reverse, which is basically changing the side of direction during the connection. So basically, we use them a lot, and there is not a day that passes without me training all three of them almost.
I have a side question to this. Who actually names these tricks?
Sorry?
Who actually comes up with the names for these tricks?
I think that those were named by Pal
Uh,
directly,
the one who
but
makes it.
yeah, the cork is easy to understand because it's a trick which is in skateboarding and freestyle skiing already,
Oh, okay.
which are sports freestyle skiing particularly, which are really popular in the Alps, and the move was really similar to what they have in those sports for the cork. And for the Joker and the Cowboy, I have to admit I don't know what his inspiration was, I think it's really cool names, personally. I think
Yeah,
they
true.
fit very well. We are not that good always to give names to trick. Personally, I'm really bad. And I think that Pal really did a great job there because it's not that easy
Yeah,
to
it stays
find.
with the week.
Yeah, it stays and kind of it creates the identity of the trick, kind of. They're really cool names. I like it. I like them a lot.
And so your home site, Saint Hilaire, I was there in August with a bunch of my friends, and I was hoping to see you there, but I think you were traveling.
Yeah, in August I'm in Organia or in Combs,
Yeah,
but
yeah, but it was fun to fly there and experience what I've always heard you train over there, and it's not very high, and I believe you work on train online, so there's a question on that, but it was really nice. It was good to
yeah.
and I believe you live in Chambéry, so
Yeah, basically, my dad was working in a school in Saint-Hilaire when I learned Acro, so I learned Acro in Saint-Hilaire, a big part of it, and it was a really good spot to learn Acro because there was not anymore, but there was a lot of Acro pilots, and some of the best Acro pilots in the world were there sometimes. So it was really good, and it was pretty high at the time. Of course, now with the really small gliders that we have now, it's not that high anymore. But in my 15 years old mind, it was a really high spot and really safe spot. Now I've discovered the world a bit more, and there is much better spot than Saint-Hilaire, but still, it was really
yeah,
good.
it's really
Yeah,
nice.
it's like when you start to travel, you see things differently to when you were a kid. I would never push in Saint-Hilaire as much as I was pushing when I was a teenager, because in my mind it was super safe there. And now it's not that safe because the altitude is a bit less, but still it was a really good spot. I still fly there, but my home base is more Chambéry now, which is the next valley. It's really like 30 minutes away. But the spot which is there is a bit better to train acro because it's a thermal spot. So we basically climb and are able to fly like the whole day without landing, and we can just do runs and run and run. So if you want like a comparison in Saint-Hilaire on a very good day, if you organize with the cars and everything, you can do like 9 to 10 runs. While in Verel, I will be able to do like 45 to 55 runs in one day. So the balance is heavily going towards those kind of spots. But those
I,
are kind of my home bases. Yeah.
in fact, I did a small XC from Annecy and landed in Chambéry and had to
Yeah.
airport, but that was
It's a
fine.
beautiful place. It's
Very
really like
nice.
it has a lake. It's really similar to Annecy in how it looks, but there is a lot less people, so it's really
Yeah,
nice.
awesome. So, talking about your style, which is clean, and we met in Olodanes last week or week and a half ago,
Yeah.
and I was lucky enough to see your takeoffs, have some videos, and I did shoot your practice run from the 1700 takeoff, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to know and see how you do it. I also saw your run at the Acro service at the landing where you normally land, and I was packing my glider and I saw you run.
Yeah.
And we spoke about this. It is damn clean. It's like it's one thing to see the videos, but it's one thing to actually see you live. And what I really found impressive was after you tumble and you always get the glider on your head perfectly stable, and it's like this. It's like it reminds
Yeah.
me of dance movements which are like really sharp. So that was just amazing. So I just want people to notice that. It's one thing to say it's clean, but it's really amazing. So now to do this, I obviously come to you on the next question, which is obviously you have a glider which allows you to do that, and
Yeah.
you have now your sponsor. You have a sponsorship with Nova Paragliders,
Yeah.
and I know that the smallest paraglider that was made was Glitch. I think 920.
Yeah. The smallest one we have, yeah, it's 9.
It's
Also,
nine.
it's more like a fun project than a real
Yeah,
acro wing, but yeah, my glider is a 13 right
you
now.
fly the 13. Yeah, I did see that, and it felt very small. I asked you if it's 2 square meters, but it's very small. So this glider that's been made for you, uh, that is that is your inputs to Nova, but also the fact that you came up with Superstall to tumble,
Yeah.
inflate tumble, and you came up with different maneuvers, which probably the gliders at that time were not tuned or designed to do that. Does do you in also in some way influence the glider manufacturers think a little bit out the box and and the design gets into a further evolution? What do you think
So
about this?
yeah, when we did the Superstore to Infinite, I was hoping, and I was right that the glider was gonna work for this kind of tricks, and I was hoping that my glider was gonna work. And if you watch the evolution of acro paragliding from like the really beginning towards nowadays, you would notice kind of there is similarities. So usually you have one pilot who is gonna believe that his glider is gonna work for this trick and he's gonna try it, and then it's gonna work out. And usually there is a couple of months where everyone will think that only this glider is working because it was done on this glider and that the other gliders are not working, etc. While in reality, after a few years, you discover that all the gliders were able to do that specific trick. So it was, for example, the SAT at the very beginning, but the infinity tumbling later on, and the super stall to infinite. But the thing is, like most gliders work from the beginning to do the tricks. The only thing is that the pilots lack imagination, or they lack the beliefs in their own equipment, so they don't try it. But most of the glider at the time when I did the Superstall to Infinite, many gliders were able to do the Superstall to Infinite. We just found out later on when other people did it with their own gliders. So most of the time we don't really trim a glider for a trick, but more we discover that it's possible for a trick. That being said, when I signed with Nova, they didn't have any acro gliders. The glitch was not a project, and they created the glider for me. And in that case, we had to tune the glider for my tricks. So basically, we had to make the glider work for the tricks I just invented, which was the super stall to infinite, but all the other tricks that came along. So this was the real challenge, was that we created something from zero towards something which was able to win competitions. So basically something which was able to perform all the tricks. So that was a real challenge. But usually the wing which I was using were working from the beginning. That was the first time I had a wing which was really not working from the very beginning.
So that's a very interesting thing that you said that the gliders were already capable of stuff. It was just that the pilot's imagination and the talent that was needed to be out there so that the things could be done. So it was not the other way around, which is very interesting to know because obviously the design aspect of the glider design aspect has now changed and it has become much better because there is much more understanding nowadays. And there are a lot of varieties available. So obviously, all the gliders now are capable of doing a lot of stuff. It's just that how much you
Yeah.
train and which level of your let's say talent or practice is suitable for which glider and how you stick with
Yeah.
it.
That's the main difference between acro and cross country, is that in cross country you need to have the best glider if you want to have any chances of winning. While in acro it's not compulsory. You can have the worst glider and you can still win if you're the best pilot. This happened to me in 2021 because I won with the worst glider on the field because my prototype was not working at all at the time. And it happened to other pilots who won with a terrible gliders. That's the thing with Acro, is that you can win with a shitty glider, but it's a lot easier to compete with a good glider because it allows you to do a lot more things, of course. And that the thing is that most acro pilots at the top will fly with prototypes, most of them, because they're gonna try to make their wing evolves throughout the season to make sure that the glider is at the top of the game. So yeah, we don't have to have certified glider in acro, and then we can change our gliders like any moment without any consequences on our competitions, because if we have a glider which has knots everywhere, it's okay still. As soon as it's still not gonna break during the competition, everyone is okay with that.
Okay, that's very interesting. I did not know that. That's amazing that even though you didn't have a good glider, you still won, and that's basically how you as a pilot are able to choose the glider out and get those
Yeah,
maneuvers. It's amazing.
but the thing is that well, in Africa, we have a lot of professional pilots, so basically it's brands who are paying the pilots to fly for them. And therefore, the pilots don't choose the glider, but choose the brand. So they choose the contract and not the glider. which is the opposite to cross country, where most pilots will choose the glider
Yeah.
rather than brand. We are gonna choose a contract. We are gonna get a contract. Is it good money? Is it allowing us to make a living? Yes or no? Yes, we go. And the glider might be complete crap, and it's gonna be our job to make it compatible. So basically, that's what I did at Nova because they had no glider at all, and the designer was really eager to make a glider. So he was highly motivated, but we had nothing. So we had to build it up. And that would be a lie to say that I did it with my input, because the main thing was that the Nova team, the guy at Nova, invested so much time in building the glitch that I have now. Because if you want an example, I think we are chatting like almost 24/7 on WhatsApp. I'm sending him messages sometimes at midnight, and he's answering me at midnight, and we are chatting almost all the time. And the glitch is one of our main topic of discussion, like how to improve and how to change things. So basically, an acro pilot do not choose gliders; they choose a brand,
Brands.
but then they have to make the glider work, and the investment of the brand is going to decide how the glider is going to work. If the brand is really invested, then the glider is going to be good. If not, then you choose the wrong brand, and that
Yeah.
is
But
tough.
also, it's very interesting to know that, obviously you fly a really small glider. I don't think I'm ever going to think about that. So that I'm thinking of getting a 20 square meters. But it's going to be pretty traumatic for you to handle that glider. For anyone else to know that, because there will just be a very few people who actually experience that glider. And for you to be able to explain that to a designer who's not probably flown that glider, for him to make the connections to get your glider tuned to your capacity, that's also very interesting. You need to
So
have
that,
that
yeah,
kind of
it's
knowledge.
what I like to compare it to is more or less like Formula One, where you have the pilot and you have an engineer on the stand, who is trying to make what the pilot thinks and what the pilot feels towards design, which is working. And that is kind of what happened for me, at least at Nova, is that I had a lot of feelings, I had a lot of things that I wanted, and I was trying to translate them to the designer, and he was making his best to kind of make what I felt happen. Of course, there was mistakes along the way, but it's really important as a pilot to give the right feedback or to give honest feedback. uh, I always try to give my most honest feedback to the designer at Nova, to Philip. Of course, sometimes my feedback was wrong. So sometimes you feel something and it's wrong, and it brings the designer to a totally wrong line. He just suddenly turned left while we should have turned right because of your feedback. This happens, and this happened to me during the development of the glitch, where I gave him the wrong feedback, and then he tried to correct according to my feedback, but then my feedback was wrong, so we went in the wrong line. But that's a really interesting relationship, and I think it's also a really fun one, because you kind of create a machine, you create something together, and if it's working good, which is the case right now, it's amazing because you are both really proud of the achievement. I'm really happy with my product. He's really happy with the product he created, because if he sees that it's at the top of the game. So it's a kind of a really fun project. It's really interesting because it's kind of a project you do kind of outside of the brand as well. So he was working, as I said, like day and night with me, kind of an additional job for him.
Right.
And it was kind of funny. We were making prototypes, but there was never any check from Nova about how the project was going. It was really just us two trying to make it work, and it was really, really cool.
Interesting, very interesting. Uh, okay, I'm going to talk about a few maneuvers. Okay, let me just say it this way, that before I try anything, it's a sort of an understanding. You sort of can figure out what's happening. When somebody says it's helico and you see helico, you know you're going to be moving this way. You can imagine stuff. You can imagine a window. You can imagine a nose down spiral. You can imagine backfly. But what's very counterintuitive is to imagine the feeling in a sack,
Mm,
because
yeah,
you are now suddenly going around, the glide is going around you and you're going slightly
yeah.
behind, and the middle point is between you and the glider. So uh, it's only when you do it that you really realize what fun it is. Is it the same with twisted? acro maneuvers? Because I think there is a little bit of mystery in that for people.
Yeah,
How does that feel for you?
twisted is really hard to understand even when you're doing it. So if I was to mime a twisted trick on the ground, it would be really hard for me to do so in most of the cases, because it is really foreign for your brain to fly that way. But with experience, you kind of react instinctively to any twisted maneuver and you start to understand it as you understand a non-twisted maneuver. But one thing that people don't know, and usually which is a surprise for them, is that many tricks are easier to fly twisted than they are normal. Because of your body position, basically, when you are flying twisted, you are watching the glider all the time, and the glider never leaves your line of sight, which is not the case when you're flying non-twisted. So for some maneuvers, it's actually a lot easier to fly them twisted than non-twisted, mainly because the line of sight is better, and so you have better control about the glider. So as soon as you overpass the difficulty of being twisted and of understanding that your hand movement needs to change, which is pretty quick because it's pretty instinctive, then many maneuvers becomes easier. Of course, all the maneuvers where you have to stay twisted during the whole maneuvers are not easier because then you need perfect body balance and perfect timing. But many of the glider where you are many maneuvers where you are untwisted, when you're untwisting, sorry, becomes quite easier. And that is something that people cannot imagine, but it is really the truth. And many pilots will tell you, I cannot perform this maneuver untwisted, but I can do it twisted pretty nice. And this happens quite a lot.
It's interesting. So it's like a mirror image that you're working.
It's a mirror image, but you don't see it as a mirror image because basically, when you watch your glider, you are not thinking with the glider should turn right, so I will pull right. You are thinking, I want to do a right trick, so you pull right anyway. Well, I pull left, but
Right.
you pull right anyway. So it's not like I want the glider to turn right. It's no, it's I want to do something to the right, so I will pull my right hand. That is the thing. It's not like when you are ground handling. You know, when you are ground handling, the glider is going to the right and you want to bring it back with the left brake, and it's confusing because it's going to the right. And but no, in a twisted trick, there is no, it's not the direction you want to go, it's I want to do something to the right, so I pull the right immediately. So that is less complicated to understand when you are flying than when you are ground handling, for example.
Understood. That makes some sense. Uh, one question which is not part of the sequence of questions I was planning to ask you, but since you brought this up, when you're doing things untwisted maneuvers, let's say it's just basically like simple thing like a wing over for you.
Yeah.
Do you always watch the wing, or do you keep and reference on the horizon to know what level you are pitching, or is just a feel?
So with if someone were to do it, I would advise them to always try to watch the wing as much as possible. Me, for example, if it's a simple maneuver, I might watch someone else. I might be focused on something else because if it's something I've performed 1,000 times, I will be able to perfectly place myself in the space. So I don't have to watch the wing. But if it's something which is a bit more difficult, I will always try to watch the wing. But for wing overs, for example, which I have done hundreds of thousand times, I don't have to watch the wing. I will rarely perform wing overs actually, except if it's to go down or to approach a takeoff to top land or something like this, or with a big glider. But usually I might not watch the wing, but rather where I'm going or where I'm at. But as a beginner, it's always a bit better to watch the wing to understand really where you are and to be able to place yourself. And it's like with everything, you have a set of rules, and the better you are getting, and the more rules you can set aside and focus on something else. But when you're beginning, it's always important to follow all the rules because they are the path to mastery, kind of. And once you have mastery, then you can set them aside.
By the way, very cool hoodie. Very cool. So
Thank you.
it's I see rise on it.
Yeah,
So rise is something we were speaking about when we were going up in the chair car, the gondola,
yeah,
up to the takeoff. And you were there, Caesar was there, and I think uh,
Blaze.
Blaze was there. And all three of you, four of you, have started rise, which
Yeah.
is which is an
So,
SRB training and actor training.
yeah.
It's cool.
Basically, we started together with Jack Pimblet, which is an English acro pilot.
Right.
We started it together, and then Blaise and Cesar, we hired them afterwards. But the idea was that I was doing some courses in China, and I was doing some private coaching, and Jack was doing some courses in Holydenis. And we had similar view in what an SIV course should look like and what we would like to bring to the students. And we had similar views in the acro coaching and how people should start acro. So we decided to kind of team up together. At the beginning, Rise was just a side project. So basically, we were supposed to do only 2 or 3 weeks a year. It was not even supposed to make money. It was just supposed to create a client base. So when we retire from professional sports, we could have like a backup and do not struggle to find a new job, but already have a job ready for us. But the thing is that it grew really popular really quickly, and we ended up being really full really quickly. So we had to hire new people to work with us to really answer the demands and answer the customers. And we had to increase the number of weeks we were working because yeah, it was getting popular. But the line of Rise was always to hire acro pilots who have a really good level. So Cesar, that's why we hired Cesar, so that they could really follow our guideline and teach the same way we are teaching. Because at Rise, we don't teach only acro, we teach SIV, but we teach it with an acro background in mind, which is like safety. So we want to teach with maximum safety. And we believe that acro flying kind of taught us how to handle the glider as safe as possible and which important phases of flying are really important to focus on. And so we kind of always do it with our acro background to know exactly what could go wrong. So we have to work on that. What could go wrong here? So we have to work on that, etc. We use our acro background to teach people, and that was the main line at Rise.
Okay. That's very interesting. Your website is really, really nice, very clean, and very good to see. There are two things that caught my attention. The first thing is, and this was a question asked by a friend who said, I want to go train with Theo Price, but I don't know Acro at all.
Yeah.
And I was like, is there an inhibition to train on
Yeah,
that?
no.
Do you need to have Acro? I don't think so because it's also SIV.
Yeah.
So just wanted you to clear that out for the
We have pilots. We have pilots coming with with 10 hours of flying, 30 hours of flying. So that's the thing. People mostly like usually it's a common misunderstanding. We are not teaching acro only. We are teaching SIV, and our main client base are SIV pilots. And there is no, you don't need to learn acro to come to us. You don't need to have a great level. You don't need to be an amazing pilot to come to us. Actually, I would say that the opposite is way better. Because if you are a low level, a low airtime pilot, we are going to be able to teach you so much more than if you are a great pilot. We use Acro to teach you. So basically, we try to give you some really strong basis so that you, if you want, when you leave a Rise course, you could start Acro. And that is possible when you leave a Rise course. You have normally the basic skills in order to start Acro. But it's not the most important. What we want is that when you leave a Rise course, you are a better pilot. You are a pilot with a better understanding of your wing, of the possible incident, and most importantly, you are a pilot which should be able to recognize all the flying incidents and know when to and what to do in order to exit them, or when to give up and use your reserve. That is kind of the main goal. But you don't have to be an amazing pilot to come through us, and I would say even the opposite is even better.
So super to all. And when are your courses the next
So
batches going to
we work usually 6 weeks a year. So we have we have the first 3 weeks of May and the first 3 week of October. That is our main working season, basically because of the competition season, so it doesn't
run?
interfere and with the training schedule.
So you're
So
booking
basically,
for May.
sorry?
You're booking for May.
Yeah. So right now the next course will be May 2025 and October 20.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, that is, we had actually only one Indian pilot who came from Beer. He was amazing. Actually, he was like something like 70 plus years old. He was an amazing guy, and he was a great pilot. Somehow he was also a very beginner. He came with his ENA, and he was like a really cool guy. And he did amazing in the course. He was like he never missed a trick. He was really amazing. He was really it was really good to see actually such a good pilot
I need to find
coming.
this pilot out. You told me about him on the
Yeah,
board.
yeah, yeah.
I'll try and find out who is. Said his name was Raghu. We'll try and find out.
Yeah.
I also want to meet him. Cool. So people who want to join your courses can do that on your website, which
Yeah.
is
We have
rise.com.
we have you can book directly on the website. You have all the dates. You have everything which is right there. We usually do five days courses, so it's usually it's 9 flights. We have like we start on Sunday, we finish on a Thursday, and you can arrive on a Saturday and leave on a Friday. So it's pretty standard courses for holidays. And we really try our best. It's a really cool. We have a really cool team. Our takeoff guy and everyone is really like friendly. We try to make it so that the pilots feels comfortable with us, and we try to make it as friendly as possible, which means that and this is my philosophy in training, there is no bad mistakes, there is no you cannot do wrong. Basically, if you do something wrong with us, it's much better if you do it with us than if you do it alone. So that is kind of the thing with Rise. We try to always tell you, look, you messed up on this flight, but it's much better you messed up with us so that we can actually explain to you what you could have done different, what you could have done better. And that is kind of the main thing about Rise is that we really focus on that. And that's what I always say to on the first briefing on day one is, look, you are like 7 people right now. And if you were to do individual coaching, so if you were to be alone in front of me, you would do maybe 5 mistakes in the week, 5 really big mistakes, which are dangerous and you need to pay attention to. But because you are 7, we're going to see maybe 30 different mistakes. And that's really good because then you're going to have an overview of all the important mistakes and never be ashamed of the mistake you're going to do, because usually you do all common mistakes, and it's really important for everyone to see this or that mistake so that they understand if it happens in the year afterwards, because that's always important, is that we try to make a connection with what's going to happen in the course and what's going to happen in the year afterwards. So that if it happened in the year afterwards, you know how to react, or you actually saw it during your course and you're like, ah, yeah, I remember this. So this was important. I needed to do that. And then you can do the proper thing, or pull the rescue if you don't know how to actually recover. So that's the main thing, is we try to be really to make a link between what you're gonna experience in the course and what you're gonna experience in the air.
Right. These courses are run in Uludenis in Turkey, and you have an FAQ section on your website, which is really, really clear. I read the whole thing, and it gives you all the information. And anyone who wants to join you can go through that, and it's really clear. And also, there is a VIP section training where there are only 4 pilots, and if somebody wants to do that, that'll be also some good training.
Yeah, so the VIP is really, it's for people who really want to progress quickly and who already have for the VIP, it's not important to be a good acro pilot, but it's important to be someone who is used to fly a lot. Because basically on the VIP, you're gonna do almost as many flights as you can in a day, which can be really tiresome if you're not used to fly a lot. So if you're not used to do five flights a day or 6 flights a day, it's going to be really tough for you to get your money worth of the course. But if you are someone who is used to do a lot of flights in a day, then it's a really great way to progress and to train and to get better, because then we can work on so many things, so many different things, which we cannot in a normal course, because in a normal course we have to go towards what's important. Whether you're coming for an SIV or an acro course, I have some set of important thing in my mind. This is really important that this pilot masters this for his future goals. So we focus on that. While on a VIP, we have more freedom because we have more flights together. So I can really say, okay, this is less important, but still in the future could be important. So we can work on that. And so you end up being a much better pilot, but you need to have the stamina to actually be able to
I know.
handle
3 flights is already too much over there.
Yeah, 3 flights is usually a lot.
Yeah.
So that's why
it's also very hot
Yeah.
saps energy. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm going to move into the section which will be more applicable to regular pilots. And I'm very mindful of the time, so I'm going to do this also here.
Yeah.
This is one thing that I've really experienced myself is when I do a little bit of acro, very little basic acro,
Yeah.
and I learned it in bullet NS2, and that really helped me become a better XC pilot. It actually helped me become more confident in the air. So, knowing a little bit of acro, I think is very good for you. It builds your
Yeah.
confidence and also makes you a safer XC pilot. Uh, but there are these, I think, some basic maneuvers that every pilot should know, according to me.
Yeah.
Uh, what do you think would be those maneuvers that every pilot should know so that they become safer in the air, be it acro, be it XC?
Yeah. So first of all, I think it's important to come back to why Acro would make you a better pilot. Most pilots will imagine Acro as doing twisted tricks and infinity tumbling, while in the end, Acro is not about doing those tricks. Acro is kind of understanding where you are in a 3D environment with your glider, being able to control your glider in all the three dimensions, and being able to place your glider wherever you want so that your glider does whatever you want. And if you describe it as this, it's then really clear that for cross country or for leisure flying, it is really useful because if you are able to place your glider everywhere you want, then you are able to thermal better, you are able to handle more situations, so you're able to do a lot of things better. But most importantly, and I think this is the main thing why Acro is important for a normal pilot, Acro will teach you how to use your rescue. And Acro will teach you the situations which you can't do anything anymore and it's time to use your rescue, and Acro will make you rescue ready. So Acro will teach you to say, okay, this is out of my control. From my skill set right now, I cannot solve this. I have to pull my reserve. And there is so many accidents in cross country, particularly with pilots not using the reserve. And I think if everyone did a little bit of acro, they would, in their mind, be a lot more comfortable with using the reserve, and probably they would survive a lot more. So I believe that this is the main, and this is the most important thing about acro. Before any of the technical skills that you could learn, learning to use your rescue as an acro pilot is going to help a lot more. But then, of course, technically speaking, Acro will teach you a lot. It will teach you to solve a lot of issues like collapses, cravats, twists. So you're going to be more comfortable with those. And as we know, it can happen anytime. I mean, I guess that India must be quite strong conditions because you have the Himalayas. So it can be quite sometimes tough conditions. And I'm sure that being able to handle like flying incident like you handle in Acro is really important. And in addition to all of this, which is the most important, you have a lot of tricks in Acro which are really useful. Of course, the first of them will be the stalls and the spins because they are really important to open cravats and to recover from some incidents. So they are like, even if you fly a two-liner, they are, let's say, even more important. But also every wingovers, spirals, they are really important because if you understand very well a wingover, you understand very well where you are in the 3D environment. And so you have always the consciousness about where your glider is. And for normal flying, so to understand where you need to turn in a thermal or what's going on around you, it's really, really important. But I would say that the stall, spins, wingover, and spirals are the main things that are really good as an acro pilot. And that's funny because they are the really basics in acro flying. So you don't need to be a good acro pilot to get the maximum of what acro can offer as an XA pilot. That's what people will sometimes misunderstand, is that they're gonna think that in order to become a better XA pilot through Acro, they're gonna need to invest thousands of hours and go to infinity tumbling, etc. While now, they're just gonna have to touch with the finger what Acro is, so the very beginning, stall, spins, and wingovers and spirals. And already they're gonna have like 80% of what Acro can offer you. And to get the next 20%, yes, they will need to invest more time into Acro. But I would say that it's worth it because it's quite fun, to be honest, and it's quite an enjoyable discipline. So it's kind of worth it. But even if they don't want to, they can stop at those 80%, and that would be already quite good.
Awesome. Uh, That's very interesting. That's almost 80%. Just a few of those numbers which are important. This month in Bir, which is the Himalayas, which is a
Yeah.
flying site, there have been a lot of rescue throws, lots. And one day there were eight. There were some mid-air collisions. Sadly, there was one fatality. But this month has been very strange for us in India. Uh, Everyone was throwing themselves all over the place and a lot of rescue stuff. So I think some training with Acro would also help.
Yeah.
Uh,
Already, this is good to hear that there was at least rescue toss and not only people crashing without the rescue, because this is already
yeah,
a good start, I would say.
yeah,
Already.
right. Uh, I want to move on to the part of Acro. If somebody wants to learn Acro, it would be easy to learn on ENB or a freestyle.
Yeah. So that's what we always advise is to go for a lobby. That is the best in order to learn acro. Any lobby will do a good job, but you don't have to invest crazy money. You don't have to invest like into a brand new glider, but a second-hand lobby will be very good. Or if you want to invest into a new gear, a new newbie will be perfect. So that would be, let's say, step one. But step two is even more important. It would be to invest into rescues. So to buy a good rescue, at least one steerable one, so usually a beamer. But yes, to buy a good rescue is really important in acro because you might use it quite often. So if you have a good rescue that can save your life, it's much better. And then the harness comes in last position because you can buy a okay harness and have a second rescue as a front mount. If you have a good acro harness, it's always better, but it's not compulsory. But yeah, I would say that rescue is number one, glider number two, and harness number three.
I've seen your harness, Theo. It's a very streamlined harness. Is it a special one made for you, or is it?
So yeah, basically my harness is a Diwali MK1, which is a Acro harness, but my Nova contract prevents me from promoting other brands
Ah,
than Nova. So that harness was made specially for me without any logos. That's why it looks so sleek
ah,
and clean.
okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so we play with the ENB practice on ENB to learn. But if somebody wants to move on to an acro glider after having learned over there, or
Yeah.
freestyle,
So
right? What
that
would be
is
the criteria?
That is a difficult move. The move from ENB to acro wing is usually done a bit too quickly by most pilots because so much can be done on an ENB. There is almost no limit. The only thing that you can't do is infinite tumbling, but all the rest you can learn. And I would say that as much as you're going to learn on your ENB, and the easier the transition into an acro wing is going to be. And so usually we say that as soon as you master like all the heli connections, like heli to sat, Misty to heli, baby Mac twist to heli, those kind of stuff on your NB, then you can start to think about flying with an acro wing. And usually try not to downsize so much. So try to stay with a size which is similar to your ENB in order to make sure that it's kind of not such a big change. So one thing I like to say is that if it's not a lot easier when you pass under the acro wing, so basically if everything you were doing under your NB do not become much easier than it was before, then you don't have yet the skill set to pass under an acro wing. So every time you switch, it should become easier. And this is a rule which kind of stays the same if you want to downsize, if you have an acro glider, if you want to downsize to a smaller one. If everything you were doing doesn't feel easier, then probably you downsized too soon. So basically, that's what I usually recommend, more or less.
That's very interesting. Okay, understood. But there is also this thing about your loading on the acro glider. So you divide the square meter, you divide your weight by the square meters.
Yeah.
It comes to around 4.5, 4.7. Is that any?
I'm
Is it
not a fan
important?
of wing loading. So basically, for me, wing load is a misconception. Is a big misconception in flying. Mainly, this is a misconception which is really damaging for girls. Really damaging for girls because girls will always have a really low wing load because they are lighter. So everyone is gonna tell them that they have a really low wing load and that they should get a smaller glider. But the wing loading is not that important. Mainly when you are learning, it's really not important because the tricks that needs indeed wing loading, you cannot do anyway. so it's not that important. And usually the big mistake with wing loading is that people have a tendency to say that there is a certain wing loading which is important to get, and you need to always be within that wing loading. The thing is that what you have to understand is, let's say the range of a acro glider will go from like 14 square meters, for the competition ones, a bit less, but more or less 14 to like 22 square meters. And sometimes some people which are really light to have the wing loading that we told them is important, they will need to fly like a 15 square meters while they are real beginners. And a 15 square meters, no matter the wing loading, will be a 15 square meters. If a 15 square meters collapses 50%, you have 7 square meters, and it's a really aggressive glider. And that is something that people will often forget. So I don't like to talk about wing loading so much because it's kind of really a big misconception and can lead to like kind of accidents and complicated situation. I know so many girls who actually stopped flying because their boyfriend or male friends told them you have to take a 16 square meters, and then they scared themselves. Well, because they didn't have the skills to fly a 16, but they told them, yeah, you are light, so 16 will be okay. But they got scared because a 16 behaves like a 16 should do. And then they had really low confidence because they thought they were not good enough to fly acro, while in fact, no one is good enough to start with a 16 square meters. So it's not the question of are you good enough? It's a question that you had the wrong glider, and unfortunately, it was really hard for you. But so yeah, wing loading is something that should be left aside acro-wise in order to focus more on sizes and which progression I want to aim to.
During 16 makes me sure.
Yeah, this is a really common mistake, and I've seen it a lot in the particularly in Austria where it's a mistake that they do a lot.
Okay, so let's say a person wants to move and start practicing, and the safest thing to do is on top of a lake or sea, on top of water. But in Organia, you have always trained over land, and I
Yeah.
think that's safe also because in case you throw, it takes you into the valley and not out of the valley.
So
What
it's
would you
kind of
suggest?
there is this thing about this water. Personally, I learned above land. So I never learned any trick above water. I learned almost everything above land when I was a kid. And it never bothered me so much because I was really focusing on my rescue procedure and I was really clean on those rescue procedure. But yeah, water is good. Water is really good if you have a boat, first of all, and altitude. That is one thing. If you have going to a water spot, but it's slow and you have water, it's much better to go to a land spot with altitude. Altitude is always better than water. If you can combine both, like in Holidays, then it's amazing. Yeah, it's really important to understand that unfortunately the water spots are good for learning because they're a bit safer, but sometimes they are not that good because it's hard to fly a lot. So for example, in Holidays, it's not that easy to do that many flights. One first reason is that it's freakishly expensive to do a lot of flights in Holidays, and second reason is that it's not that efficient. So if you want to reach a certain step, you will need to fly above land and to fly in thermal spots where you can really like multiply the amount. And that's why we go to Organia, because as an example, in Organia, we can do between 25 and 50 runs a day, compared to Holidays, where the maximum you can do is 10 and you went quick. So yeah, and in Organia, it's free. So you do those runs for free. So it makes it so kind of a deal.
So that brings me to the last question. Now that we are trading over land and water, depends on who you are. Important thing is to throw the rescue. So
Yeah.
there are certain situations which we have seen in a lot of videos recently. Also, people are in a spiral or in auto rotation, and the rescue always gets entangled in the glider. That's one question, how they throw that. And the second one is, what are the signs that you need to know that you need to throw the rescue?
To answer number two, I will answer number one first. So to answer number one, I will answer number two first. Is the sign where you should for your rescue. So first of all, you should always use your reserve if you start to be in a situation that you do not understand. That should be reason number one. If you don't understand a certain situation, you should always go for the reserve straight away, because without understanding of the situation, you're never going to be able to solve it anyway. And if you do solve it, it was just luck. And betting on luck when your life is on the line, I always thought was a stupid bet, in my opinion, and a rescue would be a much better situation. The second thing is that as soon as you feel low and as soon as you are low, you should pull your rescue no matter what. If you understand the situation or not, if you know how to solve it or not, doesn't matter. If you're low, you should always pull your rescue because we all do mistakes. And if you make a mistake in solving that situation and you were low, then you need to actually, yeah, you cannot take that risk. So you need to have already pulled the rescue. So I think that's kind of like the two main things. If you don't understand and or you're low, then you should always pull and pride and ego to the side, and then you land, and you're gonna always have the time to build your ego back later on rather than crash and die because you didn't. That brings me to the auto rotation or the spiral, but the auto rotation is more a problem. So in auto rotation, basically, the chances of your rescue getting in the line, getting entangled in the line is really high. And that is why we try to teach in SIVs to how to exit auto rotation, because it's much better if you can throw your rescue in a straight flying position rather than in auto rotation. So if you have an auto rotation, it's really important to try to exit it if you have the altitude. And that is the number one thing to do. And it's the same with the spiral. But if you can't and you have to pull your rescue in auto rotation, it's really important to be aware of where the glider is, where you are, and to try to throw, and that is a consensus, to try to throw upwards a little bit in order to make sure that the fly away from the line, because in auto rotation with the center of rotation, which is similar to the SAT, actually, it's really easy for your glider to get entangled like in that center and to get into the line. So you have to throw it really upwards so that it gets away from the rotation of you and the glider. But that is not 100% effective. That is why it brings me back to my first point. As soon as you don't understand, you should pull the rescue, because chances are, if you pull early enough, you're going to avoid ending up in auto rotation and you're going to avoid this situation. While if the more you're going to wait and the more you're going to try to do something which you don't understand, the more chances you're going to have to enter in auto rotation and then ultimately make the situation worse. So that's why rescue should be your first thing as soon as you have an incident low or that you don't understand.
And this applies also in exit flight.
Yes, it applies. I mean, it applies 100% in exit flight. In Acro, it's different because in Acro, you are in a situation that even if you are more or less under control, basically you are aware that you're going to need your rescue maybe, and for sure in your Acro carrier, you're going to need it once or twice or 15 times, you know? And so you are in a situation that you kind of control. If you start a maneuver, I hope that you have some ideas of what could go wrong in that maneuver. So you basically, whatever happens, you are always kind of aware of the situation. You are always kind of aware that this collapse comes because I did these mistakes or because of this or because of that. And you are supposed to always be kind of aware of your altitude. So it's much easier to take the decision to pull your reserve in Acro because you are more or less in control. Even when you pull your reserve, you are still in control. While in cross country, you are not expecting an incident, or you are never expecting it. That's why those rules are way more important in cross country, because we tend to forget them a lot quicker. While in Acro, you cannot forget that you have two rescues and you might use them. In cross country, it's much easier to forget that you have a rescue and that you might use it. That's why it's important to remind yourself, if I don't understand or if I'm low, I pull straight away. And if both come together, it should be like a really quick decision.
That's really good advice, dude. That makes a lot of sense. I hope everyone, including me, through the reserve, I've always been into solving stuff, and
You know,
like you
it's
said, it's luck. You know?
yeah, betting on luck is not good. Anyway, I mean, paragliding is blessed by all the gods. So we see a lot of incidents happening and somehow people survive. And I don't know who is protecting paragliding, but someone must be. But it's really bad to bet on this protection. And I would rather bet on my own skills at throwing my reserve. And that is something that I cannot stress enough, is that every pilot should think that the rescue is a possibility every day. Any day could be a rescue day. And that is something that I really try to say all the time. And I said it in interviews in the past. I will say it again and again. Like every flight could end up under the rescue. Whoever you are, whatever whatever your skill set are, even if you are the best cross-country pilot in the world, someone might crash into you and you might need you rescue. And if you are not rescue ready in your mind, then probably you are not gonna pull it. So it's really, really important to remind yourself of that. Even if you are doing a chill flight, sunset flight, you could end up with your reserve. And if you are ready in your mind, thinking that it's a possibility, then you're gonna be that much quicker, and maybe it's gonna save your life.
Okay.
And there is no shame. There is
Yeah.
no. It's much better, and you should be way prouder of yourself if you pull your reserve when it was needed,
Right.
rather than if you didn't. And I think that it should be really important.
Totally agree with that. You have to pull it when you have to pull it. There's no shame in it, and it's really
Yeah.
good.
It should not
It
be.
also trains you to pull it next time. So yeah.
Yeah.
So people in India are going to have a chance to see you. I understand. You are
Yeah,
probably
it
coming
should
over.
be. So it's still to be fully decided. We have to plan it because basically I'm coming back from Japan and I was supposed to be in India one day afterwards. So it's kind of like a crazy schedule. But I will try to make it work. We still have to organize with the organization how we're gonna make it work, blah blah blah. But I would like to come. It's in Lake Terry, I think the name
Lake
is.
Terry. So it's in Uttarakhand. It's one of the states in North India,
Okay.
and they've had one Acro Cup last year, and this is the second one. And it's the site is over a lake, and Acro training has been going on over there,
Yeah.
and it's from the 18th to the 22nd December, I guess.
Yeah.
So if you're coming and if you announce that, I think a lot of people will be happy to come meet you over
Yeah,
there.
I would like to come. I think that would be a place on my wish list. I will try to make it happen. I just need to organize these schedules that it works, and then we need to find a way with the organization to make it work. But I do hope that we can manage.
Awesome. I hope if you come, I'll try and come too and catch
Yeah,
up there. And if you land up in Bombay, I would love to show you around, and it'd be
yeah,
a pleasure to take you to our home side of the country.
yeah, for sure. For sure, one day I will spend more time in India rather than just 5 days for this competition. But I will try to actually see India a bit more
Awesome.
because I think it's amazing. It looks
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, Please, it would be a pleasure to show you around.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank
So I need to apologize for the firecracker sound, Theo. Today is the festival of lights, Diwali. It's very
Yeah.
exciting festival here in India, and firecrackers are big first. We can't do anything about it, but I don't think it was that bad. But yeah, I apologize to the audience also. But it's fun. It's exciting, you know. It's
was
just
okay.
that you're there because you're there. There are firecrackers today. So
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I
it's a
just hope
good
it was
podcast.
easy to understand for the audience. For me, it was okay.
Yeah. All right. Theo, thank you so much for being on the
You.
podcast, and you managed it in almost an hour. So it was also a pleasure to meet you, and I hope to catch you someday, somewhere, and maybe see you in the sky.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
hosting me, and see you soon.
Yeah, thank you.